What is up, fanboys and fangirls? Welcome to another Review Point podcast coming to you from fanboysanonymous.com. I'm Tony Mango. I've got with me Robert DeFelice.
Hi, Robert. I'm Tony. No, but God, that's wrong. Sorry.
We're coming to you in a 4:3 aspect ratio if I bothered to go through and do that, but I wouldn't do that because I actually like my graphics. So maybe I'll put it all in black and white, or maybe I won't. Maybe it'll just be a 4-hour long podcast. How about we do that?
All right. I'll see you when the sun comes up.
What we're talking about here is Zack Snyder's Justice League. It came out the other day. We got a chance to watch it. I watched it over the course of 2 sittings. I watched half and then the other half just because I started it at like 5 in the morning, like an idiot. So it's kind of like, all right, well, once I get halfway through this, I think I'm going to try to get some sleep and then finish the rest of the day and then do that kind of stuff. You watched it all 4 hours in one chunk, right?
I started at 11, and I finished around 3. And oof, it's a long one.
So I've already done a review of Justice League, the Joss Whedon cut. So I don't know if you want to refer to the one as the other one as this one. I mean, there's the theatrical cut, which is the second cut of the film because the first one's the Zack Snyder's cut, but then this is Zack Snyder's Justice League. So
as this stands, like, this is the real Justice League to me.
There's the Justice League, as some people have dubbed it. That's the Joss Whedon cut. It's a little too hard to say the Justice League and have anybody understand what we're saying on the podcast. So I'll just call it Whedon cut and Snyder cut to make it easier. So I'm not saying Zack Snyder's Justice League and Joss Whedon's version of the film that was the theatrical run or whatever. We're going to refer to it as similar things like that throughout this whole podcast. And it's going to act as kind of a normal review point and kind of a comparison video. And I'm not going to have like comparison graphics or something. It's still just a podcast, but we're going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, the hits and the misses, what was better, what was worse. Kind of just break down the movie. It's the same movie, but it's not.
But better.
It's better in a lot of ways. It's missing some things that I actually liked better in the theatrical cut. So there's definitely positives and negatives that are coming out of this. And your gut reaction afterward was, this is so much better.
This was so much better. Not even like close. Like, this is a movie I'd watch again. Like, that theatrical cut was not good. It was a movie that frustrated me completely. It soured me even more on Superman. Like, they were all making fun of Bruce. Like, that movie had me convinced I never wanted to see Affleck's Batman again. This movie had me wanting more of Affleck as Batman.
I have a real love-hate relationship with Snyder's version of the DC film franchise. I'm not going to call it the DCEU because it's not called that. But the first impression that I had for Man of Steel was, man, this is like 75% perfect and 25%. What the hell is the matter with you? Because, for instance, and this isn't just going to be a Man of Steel review, I think Henry Cavill is fantastic as Superman.
Would have been a good Bond.
Still could, maybe in the future. I don't know.
I'd watch it.
I think that Diane Lane and Kevin Costner are amazing cast choices for Jonathan and Martha Kent. I think that Zod was really well cast, and so on and so forth. And the action was better than any of the action in any of the Superman movies. But then they did stuff like have it where Jonathan Kent tells him he should have let people die. And I'm like, that's not Jonathan Kent. Don't do that. Don't have him say that you could fix a lot of the things that I don't like about Man of Steel with very minor tweaks. Because even the line that he says in that where Clark says, well, what should I have done? Just let them die? And he goes, I don't know, maybe. the way you fix it is you just have Jonathan go, I don't know, maybe, well, no, you couldn't have done that. It's tough, son. Where you just go, yeah, sometimes you're going to think to yourself, I don't know, maybe, but then you're going to have that, like, no, of course not. You don't do that. You're my son. You don't let people die. And then that saves the scene and whatever. Like, that's kind of how I've approached a lot of these movies. And for something like Batman v Superman, flawed movie in a lot of ways. But have you ever seen the Ultimate Edition?
No.
Significantly better movie.
So what is it with this guy?
So,
like,
I'm convinced at this point, after watching this film and Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder cannot be edited. And that's the problem. Like, if somebody tells him trim a bunch of stuff, it becomes a mess. But if he gets to do these long, sweeping, epic type of things, he can tell a damn good story with just some problems along the way.
And that being said, like, that's what this movie was to me. It was a long, epic story that hit a lot of really good points. And I would definitely watch it again.
I think Batman v Superman is even more so along that 75% brilliant, 25% hugely problematic side of things. Because Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, I should say, it's got some of the best Bruce Wayne stuff. It's got, like, Wonder Woman's great for her little bit that she's in there. Like, I'll go back to one thing in Batman v Superman. We're not just reviewing the other movies. We're talking about Justice League, but I think it's important to set it up. I love, for instance, in Batman v Superman, when Bruce is at the party and he pretends to be drunk and not know where he's at, trying to look for the bathroom. And he's really just looking to spy and to hack into the system and stuff. So he's all just kind of like, oh, I was looking for the bathroom. And they're like, oh, it's the other part. And he goes, I like your shoes. Because I'm like, oh, he's playing up this drunk part. And then when the person walks away, he's immediately like, all right, I'm going to hack into the system, whatever. I'm like, God, that's Bruce. Like, he can play the dumb playboy. And then in other parts, you got the line of the whole, if he's even a 1% chance, we have to take it as an absolute certainty that he's a villain and whatever. I'm like, that's Bruce Wayne. Batman is so fucking great. And then you get here, he's killing people, and you're like, come on, Zach. Like, you know.
All right, well, I'll say right now, I did not mind the use of guns in this movie.
This movie? No. I feel like human. Batman is much better in this one than he was in Batman v Superman scenes that I didn't like in Batman v Superman. Because, again, most of Batman v Superman, the Batman parts are perfect. And then there's just some parts where I'm like, you missed the bar. You did the wrong thing there. You shouldn't have Bruce living in a penthouse, like in an abandoned Wayne Manor, when you can have Wayne Manor, but you shouldn't have him kill people because whatever. You shouldn't have Dick Grayson be the dead Robin because he's not the dead Robin. You shouldn't kill off Jimmy Olsen ahead of time, like, you know, that kind of thing. But in this one, it's like okay.
When Dick Grayson's the dead Robin, by the way, that's
I don't like that at all.
It's not good,
not the slightest bit. Those are the kind of mistakes that I feel like if there's another person in the room that can tell somebody like a Snyder, be like, look, I know where you're going with this, and I know that you're going like the darker and grittier type of thing, but can we switch this up a little bit? I think that makes a big difference. And to be fair, I think that the Joss Whedon cut of this has a couple things that I wish that this Zack Snyder cut had. It's just that overall, the Snyder cut's a far better movie.
It's a million times better. I almost said it was leagues ahead, but we'll save the puns for later.
It's Justice Society's ahead. It just doesn't make any sense.
Of America.
Yeah. I have a bunch of random ass notes because it's a 4-hour long thing and I didn't write things down in order. So we're going to bounce around here quite a bit because, you know, we're going to be like, and another thing about the scene I talked about before, you know, that kind of a thing. So I apologize for my erratic ideas, but if you have your thoughts and you want to chime in about what you think, positive or negative, pro and con, throughout this whole journey where we're going to be talking about this, drop in the comments section below. Tell us your thoughts on our thoughts and everything else that you wanted to chime in about. And while you're over here in the YouTube space and you're leaving that comment, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, because that is something that helps us out quite a bit. Ring that little notification bell as well. Hit the like button, hit the share button if you want to pass this around to anybody. Check us out on patreon.com/Fanboys Anonymous and help sponsor some other episodes going forward. And to just, let us know that you like us and you appreciate it. And $1 a month is a really good deal with the amount of podcasts that we're giving you guys. So consider donating to that. We'll talk about some more plugs a little bit later on. I'm not going to bog that down too much. I have a note here. I guess I'll start with this kind of thing. The opening shot, that went on forever. And the very first impression I had about this cut of the film was, oh God, no wonder it's 4 hours long. It's going to be 2.5 hours of this shot of just for that, like the entire universe or whatever. I didn't really like that, to be honest.
It's a good way to kick it off. But yes, it did go on a little too long. I would have trimmed a little bit of fat here.
I get where they're going, because they did the whole thing about the bell's been rung. Now that they know that the Kryptonian's dead, that he's heard the screams, and now Darkseid's coming. But it didn't need to be like a 5-minute shot, or, There's moments of this movie where I'm like, he's going more poetic, and I appreciate it, but at the same time, you could be reined in a little bit.
Right.
One of my issues, I have a note there that says, I don't think Snyder's seen a slow-mo he didn't like.
Well, I kind of got a little nostalgic watching this film, because this very much felt like the big, unnecessarily epic summer blockbuster film. Even though I know that all these characters were in their own films, it didn't really feel like, you need to watch that in the way that, you need to watch the
MCU.
The MCU, thank you. And, you can't just jump into Endgame. You need to watch everything that came before it.
It's so baffling to me when somebody's like, yeah, I've seen Iron Man 2 and Ant-Man and Endgame. It's like, what? How do you even know what's happening? Yeah.
This felt like a film that you can watch from just spot on. From just the opening of this film. If you watch all 4 hours, you've sat through a good epic film, and it's kind of what I wanted from this movie. It's just a fun superhero film.
I think it's a little bit too much of a music video at moments.
Yeah, that was a weird choice.
Not only is that the slow-mo side of things, but one of the things, there's going to be a lot that I really, really like about this, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm talking about only negatives here. We're going to get into a lot of amazing positives. It's a hits and misses podcast, so you're going to get hits and misses. But one of the big misses that I have here, the music.
Yeah.
The score is meh, and that's a shame, because the score for Man of Steel and the score for Batman v Superman are great. And this, I like that every time that Wonder Woman was on the screen, I didn't like that at all.
And I don't want to take away from this, because I'm sure it built the character, but the Aquaman song, when
he's on the bridge and it's like the little music video moment.
What was all that?
It's weird choices of music.
I'm gonna compare it to wrestling because it's what I know, but it just seemed to break out into these random video package vignettes of and now here's a song and we're highlighting this guy, and it's no, and then the weird thing with Barry, and he takes the hot dog, and like you would think he'd known this girl his whole life. The way that everything's just slow and the music's playing in the background, like this is such a big dramatic moment. To the best of my knowledge, he had no idea who she was.
Now, I'll give them credit on that one because it is meeting his future wife.
That's fair.
So it's kind of like, love at first sight type of thing. But I don't get the choice of music for some of them. Where, like, Zack Snyder seems to prefer very folky songs. Even, like, the versions of, like, Hallelujah that he likes a lot. And I guess, like, actually a good comparison to me is there's a lot of music used in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think it works significantly better than the music in these.
I think that has a great soundtrack.
Yeah, because ain't no mountain high enough. When you get to that, like, spoilers for Guardians, but Peter's listening to that, that's the first track that he hears. I nearly teared up. And I've never been a big fan of that song, and now I like that song a lot because of Guardians of the Galaxy. But with, like, the shot of Aquaman, and it's just, like, this extended, I'm walking into the sea, this is my vignette type of thing. Like, you know what? They don't need this shot. You could cut that. You could trim a couple things here and there, and I don't think it changes a single thing. Like, Steppenwolf did not need to do that scene where he's getting the information out of the Atlantean.
Right.
We know that he found it out. He's on the hunt for them, and he found it. We don't need a couple of minutes of him torturing another Atlantean. If you want to argue that it tries to set up that little spidery thing, by the time we see the spidery thing getting the information out of another guy, we go...
completely different, completely, like, separated moment.
And it's kind of like, oh, so the spidery thing does that. Okay. We don't need a whole scene separating that, so there's some sequences that absolutely didn't need to be in there, but there are some sequences that are so much better. And characters that didn't exist in the other one. That it's like, it's almost like they did drop an entire movie. And they just said, let's trim this down to as basic as we can get it. And then say that it's good enough, where you can't do that with some movies.
And it really wasn't. I cannot stress that enough. Like, the movie that we got in theaters was just objectively a bad movie.
Because it's a mess. It's two people splicing together two different movies. And it doesn't work that way. I do think Justice League could have been done well by Joss Whedon. But if he's picking up the leftovers of somebody else's movie and trying to patch things together, then you get stuff like the mother box. It's such a better scene when they're realizing that the mother box can bring Superman back.
Yep.
Because in this movie, they're like, hey, we can't beat Steppenwolf, but we know that the Kryptonian can because they were afraid of the Kryptonian, and he's the strongest person. And the mother box, we've learned from Cyborg that can change matter. And Barry understands this, and Bruce understands this, and it's like, okay, so now they understand that this is what can do. Instead of, I think in the other one, it was like Bruce and Diana talking about how they needed Superman to be the leader.
Right.
Which that's not what you need Superman for. You need Superman to beat the shit out of Steppenwolf.
And you see, that was my whole issue, was I thought the other movie really did a job at undermining Bruce. Like, Bruce was like, what's your superpowers again? I'm rich. Instead of it being like this running gag of irritants, like, why is this guy here? He's just a rich guy. That line was more played up for laughs. Like, oh, how'd you save the house, Bruce? I bought the bank. It was those two moments of, I have money and you don't. And that's all you needed. As opposed to Diana keeps shutting this guy down because girl power. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just, like, in the theatrical release, it was very like, and Diana has shut him down again. And
Yeah, because there's that scene where she's setting his like broken rib or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't have to. She says something about like you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have any powers or something like that. Or I don't remember exactly what the whole thing is, but I will give credit to where it's due. I do think that there are some scenes in the Joss Whedon version that I wish were in this one.
Like what?
I liked that angle in the previous one that Bruce was willing to die, where he was sort of like, my plan is I'm going to sacrifice myself and you guys can finish the job. I liked that they had set that up, and I don't think that they hit it as hard in this one.
I think they didn't hit it as hard because they didn't need to. That element was definitely there.
Yeah, it's still there. It's just, I think that maybe one of those scenes could have been reworked. I mean, he didn't want to use any of Joss Whedon's stuff because that wasn't in his game plan whatsoever. But I think that, for instance, it's a shame that we don't get some happier Superman stuff. Like, I don't want Superman in this thing to be a completely different Superman, but I don't want Superman to always just not be Superman. And I think you need a happy medium between the two. I was okay with the previous version justifying that he's got his second chance and he came back and now he's going to be a happier Superman. But Whedon tends to take things a little bit too much into comedy for the sake of comedy, just to bring some lightness into it. Whereas Snyder tends to go with realism to spite comedy.
So again, jumping all over the place, and sorry, but my biggest issue with Justice League, to the point where like I started screaming to the people I was watching it with, was, my God, they got their fucking ass kicked. And then this guy shows up and it's just like, ha, is this what was giving you problems? Bang, 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 bang. You know, and that's after kicking their ass too, because Superman comes back and he's not sure who he is. This film not only made the rest of the league seem competent, but it also made the arrival of Superman such a welcome addition and like the final piece of the puzzle and not the all-in-one solution.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And that to me is alone why I would always watch this version over the theatrical release.
I do wish though that there's a happy medium between, like, I liked Clark bonding with Cyborg when they were trying to get the mother box together, and he was like, you know, can you hold it, and like that little moment I liked. And I do like the post-credit thing of Clark racing Barry. It wouldn't fit in Snyder's film.
I like these post-credit scenes so much more.
I mean, it's hard to, like, you can't just turn 180. You can't go from super dark and super serious and ominous to, hey, let's race, and not like it feel jarring.
I thought they were setting up a whole nother franchise there for a second, and I was like, you know what? I'm down with it.
Well, they definitely were, because have you followed what his original plan was?
No. Was it going to end with injustice?
So spoilers for everybody that doesn't necessarily want to know. Well, let's put it this way. He has said, this is it. This is not, like, they're not doing another movie. They're not going to finish the rest of the series the way that he was going to. This is out of continuity. This is just kind of like a film exercise, kind of. So even though I'm spoiling something, it's not something that's going to happen. Basically, his plot was the next film would be Darkseid takes over and he gets the anti-life equation and Lois dies, and Lois and Bruce have been in a relationship at one point, and there would be this whole subplot thing where Clark turns bad because of the anti-life equation, and that's why they get that whole thing at the end. They send Barry back in time, he changes things, and eventually, long story short, Cyborg figures out a way to become human again, and Batman sacrifices his life, and Clark is good again, and Lois has a kid, and it's Bruce's.
Oh.
So, like, at one point in this movie, there's a shot of Lois having a pregnancy test. And at the end of the movie, Bruce says, "Congrats, by the way." So it's like there's elements that are there, but there's also elements that are different from that original idea that he had said that he had. So I don't know if that's how they would actually go, because, well, Lois and Bruce don't have a relationship in this movie. So they kind of already steered away from that. Oh, they've had a relationship here and there. Even like
weird to me.
World's Finest, remember?
Oh, right. That's because that just seems like, no,
it's just wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Like, no, Lois is pure. Like,
yeah, it's Lois and Clark. It's not Lois and Bruce. Bruce needs to be with Selena.
Selena, okay?
Yeah.
There are certain things in life, Tony, and that's one of them. Bruce needs to be with Selena.
I do think that some humor could be added into this, though, and some stuff that, like, it's not a big deal, so I'm sure that they could have been able to, if there was like a committee working on this movie, I would have pitched some of those things too that Whedon did. Like, I don't think it's a problem for Cyborg to say "booyah." That's his catchphrase.
I would have had that in there.
And I know that Ray Fisher didn't like that, but to me it's like, well, that's his catchphrase. You don't make it goofy, you just have him say it, but you have him say it in a scene like the football scene where he wins the game, he scores the touchdown, and he's just like, "Booyah," whatever, and people go, that's Cyborg's phrase. Haha, they did the reference. Because why not, right?
Or even when they're getting ready for battle, and it's like, all right, he's got the weapons all prepped, he could have just let it out there.
Yeah, he's preparing his arm guns, and he's just kind of like, yeah, "Booyah," kind of thing, or something.
And it's a subtle, but it's a booyah, and it's, there you go.
You don't gotta go all yippee-ki-yay on the whole thing, but I liked Aquaman with the lasso of truth in the other version. That wasn't in this. I forget exactly what he says, but he's like talking about like his feelings or something, and he realizes that the lasso's hooked on him. That's why he's spilling the beans. But at the same time, I'm glad that the Flash doesn't just fall on top of Wonder Woman for a cheap, "oh, I fell on the hot chick's boobs" kind of joke.
I mean, yeah, it's too cheeky.
Cheeky.
Yeah. Again, Wonder Woman, great casting choice.
How good looking is Gal Gadot? Like, it just that literally is one of the notes that I have, is just Gal Gadot equals and then exclamation points.
I cannot, like, she's so there's a class to it, it's not just like Megan Fox 10 years ago was just like, oh my god, so hot. It's like, Gal is classy in addition to just being absolutely fucking gorgeous.
Great casting for the whole, like, Wonder Woman being this like epitome of a woman, to look up to for beauty and for strength and for all these kind of things, the same way that the men are. I mean, because like Henry Cavill, the dude's a god. Like,
yeah,
it's like,
I think they got the right guy to play Batman too, and I wasn't sold on Affleck, but again, after watching this, I'm like, you know what? He played a very good Batman.
Ben Affleck is my favorite on-screen Batman.
Yeah, you were telling me that. I was like, a lot of people don't feel that way.
I mean, like, I'll pick Kevin Conroy in my head for, like, the voice of Batman, but you get, like, I mean, it's in the other version of it. It's on this one too. But I don't care how many demons he's fought and however many hells he's never fought us. Like, that's Bruce. Because fuck you, I'm the goddamn Batman. That kind of thing.
We'll get to one of those post-credit scenes where he said something that literally shook me.
Let's talk about it, because it's we're bouncing around here. The part where the dystopian future, which we didn't get to see much of the nightmare thing, but we got to see more of it this time, because that's where that's like the big thing that he's trying to build with Batman v Superman and such, where in this future you got Deathstroke and Mera and Barry, Cyborg, Bruce, and the Joker, which is like, okay, cool. Fucking Joker's there working with Batman. This is pretty, something's dire, you know?
It's the Leto Joker, which is better than it was.
Much better. He's a little bit more reserved than I would want.
He's a little bit, I'm sorry. Go to smartcatmoment.com. He's a little bit like Sting, where he's literally just going, ooh, I'm the Joker. Like, I just got like Sting vibes from it, but so much better than Suicide Squad.
And like his like back and forth with Batman, where he's talking about, you know, how many more people are gonna have to die. You know, you've lost Lois and your mother, your father, and your adopted son. And the line I think that you're thinking of is when he's like, when Harley died in my arms and so on and so forth, whatever. So when I kill you, and make no mistakes, I will fucking kill you.
I will fucking kill you. I was like, oh
yeah.
Oh.
Like, that's Batman. Like, Batman does not kill people, but Batman always is like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And it's like, yeah, fuck yeah.
And your Joker played it well. He's just openly talking about how it's Bruce Wayne. He's like, here's a truce, Bruce, you know, as long as you have this card, you know, nothing bad will happen between us. But if you rip it up, we can go somewhere and talk, or whatever he said. And he just looked at him like, I will fucking kill you. Make no mistake. I was like, oh my God, I want to see it happen now. And then Superman shows up, and that's how you realize that he's a threat. And it's just so good. And then Bruce wakes up, and I'm like, all right, I'm okay with it, because it was too good. It's too good to be true.
I love moments like that. Because at this point, if you've seen enough of the TV shows and the comics and the video games and the movies and whatever, to be perfectly honest, like, yeah, I'm all for all of it. But the moments that stand out to me in these type of stories at this point are not whether or not Batman is having the best fight sequence, or whether or not there's a particular like set in a Batman thing where it's like, okay, well, you got the dark and moody set down or whatever. Like, you need all of the elements, of course, because if it was like, well, this looks weird, or they didn't even have any action in that movie, that kind of a thing. But the things that really stand out to me as like, not just you need this stuff, this is the stuff that makes it go an extra step, are the moments like that kind of a thing, where I'm like, oh, you get the character and you're doing character work. I like the character stuff. Like, I absolutely love, for instance, the scene of Martha and Lois, where she's saying she can't tell people how proud she is of her son, and no one knows how she and Lois feel, because they're the only people who really knew Clark were them. And everybody else talks about how much they're mourning, and she can't tell them no, but she can't do anything about that, whatever. And it's just sort of like, that, and like Martha pulling up to the farm to see that Clark's back. Like, those are the moments I watch these movies for, and I go, oh my God, I love it.
I also liked Martha telling Lois, if you want to do something for me, return to the living. It's very good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Return to the living.
I didn't like that was actually Martian Manhunter. I'm glad Martian Manhunter's in this, but I don't think that should have been him. I think that should have been actually Martha, you know? Because it just,
Right.
it undercuts it, because it's like, all right, Martha didn't have that conversation then. But it's like, it's cool. Like, Martian Manhunter's in this. It's General Sonwick. That's neat.
I like the inclusion of Manhunter.
I like his scene at the end better.
Yeah.
I think that's the better reveal. So that would be one of those things that I would have cut out if I were like working on this movie. I'd be like, Zach, I don't think you should have that Martian Manhunter reveal, because he's not in the end fight. So you're setting him up for nothing, really.
He should have been in the end fight, now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you set up midway through the movie, Martian Manhunter is a character now. And he only comes in at the end and goes, okay, now that you guys solved the problem, now I'm going to start doing stuff. Whereas if you cut that little bit, Martha and Lois have an actual scene together. And then the big reveal at the end of Martian Manhunter becomes, oh, wow, didn't see that one coming. Martian Manhunter's here too. Cool. You know?
Yeah,
so that's
it's
a
small
mistake.
Detail though.
So I really like that they incorporated Ryan Choi in this.
That was good.
You know, whenever they include characters like that, I think as long as they don't do them injustice, then I think that's so much better. Like when they had Professor Hamilton and Man versus Steel, I was gonna say, and Man of Steel. That's like, okay, you needed a scientist character, of course you're gonna use Emil Hamilton. Great. Just don't kill off Jimmy Olsen, you know, like that kind of thing.
And I thought, of course, you know, great casting with Kai. That's about all I got. The fun stuff he added to the scenes with Cyborg's dad.
Cyborg's dad, man, the relationship between Victor and Silas is significantly better in this movie.
And it's significantly more played up.
It's night and day. In Joss Whedon's cut, it's the bare bones, something happened to me and I don't trust my dad anymore, and then, well, I guess we're going to try to repair this relationship. This is so much better. I like his like sacrifice.
That was heart-wrenching.
And I like that it wasn't that he was trying to destroy the box because he knew he couldn't, that he was just marking it. That was cool.
He almost seemed like as much of a main character as any of the members of the League.
Yeah.
He had a lot to do with this film.
Big fan of the way that they use Silas Stone. Because Cyborg's not the type of character I think can stand on alone on its own movie. I still think that Flash really can't for the most part, but Flash is a lot easier than Cyborg.
And Flash has the built-in, like, people like the show, people, you know, they're used to seeing this character on his own.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around for decades, whereas Cyborg, he's always been a part of, like, the Teen Titans. And,
yeah,
you know,
I wouldn't want to see him in his own film.
Plus, it's a little bland to just be like, oh, check out our new film, Cyborg. Okay, it doesn't have a flair to it, you know?
I want to be Cyborg. I told you that.
Yeah, like the ATM scene.
This dude was like manipulating money, and I'm just like, can you imagine having that ability to just, you know what? Today I won $100,000. Okay, cool. It's mine because I can manipulate everything in the world because I'm part machine.
It's a good moment that he uses that to help somebody who's struggling.
Right.
Instead of like he steals it for himself or something.
Because there was also the scene of like he changed somebody's grades because her mother had just died when they were kids, and
yeah,
the mother stood by him like, listen, there's no way that girl can pass. And what are you doing to help her? It's like good shit.
I liked a lot of the stuff that we got that was extra with Alfred, because we got a lot more Alfred in this one.
Dude, this Alfred, top notch. I enjoyed this Alfred.
I love that he like referred to Superman when he pops up and he's just like, Master Kent. Like, just sort of like, that's Alfred, you know? Alfred would do that. That's Master Kent. And I like the little bit with the T where like there's not much humor in this movie, but the humor that's in there for the most part, it lands. It's a little moment like that of him just being like, no, I don't want any tea, but you should do it this way and that way and that way. I'll take care of it.
Because I like the idea of, as much as we love Bruce and as much as Bruce kicks all kinds of ass, Bruce is a man-child.
Yeah, kind of.
And Alfred has developed this perpetual like, no, I like this controlling, because I do everything around here. I got it. Like, I don't need you to do this.
And I like, for instance, there's a joke of, you think that Wonder Woman would go for a younger guy? And Cyborg's like, she's 5,000 years old, Barry. Every guy's a younger guy.
I like the, when they arrive at the cave, and Bruce goes, this is Alfred? I work for him? It's just, I don't know, I like that line. It's very playful, and it establishes Alfred as like a badass in his own way.
Yeah, is that the part where Aquaman says, badass Alfred?
Badass Alfred.
Oh, another line that I wrote down that I really, really like. Not a comedy one, but just a really good little bit was when Bruce says, Alfred, for once, I'm operating strictly on faith, not reason. And then Alfred says, and it might be my favorite line of the whole movie, when he says, if you can't take down the charging bull, don't wave the red cape at it.
And like, Bruce shoots back, this cape will charge back, and I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, because that's such a good line. It works on so many levels. Like, whoever, if that's Snyder wrote that line, or Terrio, or Will Beall, whoever it might have been, I'm assuming it's probably Terrio. That's a fucking great line.
And I like as they're boarding the jet when he's like, Alfred, who's a cynic in this movie, it's just like, well, what makes you so sure he's going to show up? And Bruce just goes, faith, Alfred.
Because it's, I mean, in this version of the story, even more so than a lot of the other ones, Superman's definitely a Jesus parallel. So the fact that it's like Bruce, of all people, having faith is interesting enough. But then on top of that, with this God character, it works on a lot of different levels. It's so good. Barry's not a total loser in this one.
No.
I like the scene with the dog thing. I think it's kind of funny. It's not my favorite, but I liked it. The fact that he grabbed the hot dog and I thought he was going to eat it.
I did too, which I'm glad he didn't.
And it said, he's like, I always keep a meat snack for the dogs and whatever. Like, so do I start on Monday? That kind of thing. He didn't have the thing in the movie that they did with the Joss Whedon cut where, do you remember the part where in the movie he says like, oh, I've never really done this before. I've just kind of pushed people and I'm worried about saving people and whatever. I don't think that he needed that in that movie. And it's not a part of this one. He's actually more competent in this one.
Yeah, which helps the overall plot. Like I said, it's the competence that sold the movie for me, because they all seemed like they were on their shit instead of, I don't know, where's Clark? How do we get Clark?
Here's something I'll say is a negative, unfortunately. There's a problem with casting and with visual stuff when it comes to the villains. Because Steppenwolf looks better. But honestly, I don't think he looks that much better. The design's just pointier, and he has like a smaller face, and it's kind of like a D to a D+. Not a big fan of the design of that. And then you got like Desaad, who is a great addition to the movie. I'm so glad that he's in there. He's like somebody who can propel the plot, and he can show off the fact that Steppenwolf is working for Darkseid. But then we get Darkseid as well, and it's like, all right, the three of them are all just grayish, black, grumbly voice blobs.
I think that was just a part of it, the whole everything's got to be more on the dark side and brooding, and like even Superman's outfit was darker.
Yeah, it's the black suit from the comics, yeah.
And even that didn't necessarily stand out as like, oh, it's the black suit. It just felt like it's darker because he's edgy. Like the whole deal is edgy.
I do think that that's a little bit of a mistake, having that kind of like everything's got to be dark and gritty all across the board, because a little bit of color can pop. And I'm not asking for like, the three main villains to sound like Teletubbies or something, but like there should be some distinction in their voice. They shouldn't just be three characters that are all like, I'm the dark guy. I'm the dark guy. No, I'm the dark guy. Yeah, we know. Like that's uninspired, I think, is what I should say. Darkseid should have had that voice. The other two, they could have had some other different voices. Or they could have looked a little different, because Desaad, like, he's literally just like melting into another blackish grayish blob here and there, and
I could agree with that.
But then again, it's like Snyder does something like that, and you're like, hey, how about we change that up? And then Whedon does something like, can we add a Russian family? I'm like, thank God that wasn't in this movie, because that was a pointless bit during that cut of the film.
There was a lot about the theatrical release of the film that, especially looking back at this, it seems so silly and unnecessary.
And it's kind of like paint by numbers. It's like, let's get a couple of jokes in the big action sequence, just so it's not as dark and can be a little bit more lighthearted here and there. And sometimes the jokes work, sometimes they don't. I don't like the idea of Superman picking up the entire building and the Flash being like, oh, okay, well, I can't do that, kind of a thing. It's like, no, save the day, But when you get jokes like at the beginning of Age of Ultron, where Stark says shit and Captain America says language, and then they're teasing him throughout the whole movie, like, yeah, that's good. So I don't want to make it seem like it's like, oh, Whedon doesn't know what he's doing. Whedon knows what he's doing. He makes mistakes too. Everybody makes mistakes.
Right. And I think he was handed a bag, like, I don't call it a bag of shit because it clearly wasn't, but he was handed an undesirable task. And I think, looking back on it, I don't want to ever look at that cut of the film again, but I'm sure he did the best he could.
I'd like to see a cut that mixes the two together, where you take the good things and the bad things and you kind of figure out a way to make it work.
I think if you did that, it's too clashing of the ideals. Like, one of my favorite things was Batman shot one of the parademons right in the fucking head. I popped so big for that. It's like, well, of course he did. Yeah, they're not humans. He can totally use their guns on these things.
Yeah,
they're not human. And hell yeah.
Yeah, the monsters, they don't count. So it's like, kill those fuckers, that kind of thing. We didn't get, like, for instance, the opening scene from the previous one. We didn't get the rooftop with the parademon, the random thief that Batman he goes there to go after, and then there's the whole subplot of like the parademons can smell fear and whatever. I didn't like that to begin with, but I'm glad that wasn't in this.
It's not here. And I'll say it again, because I was worried midway through the movie that I'm like, oh shit, it's gonna be 4 hours long. I'm worried that by the time I get to Superman, I'm gonna be like, you made me sit through 3 hours for this dude to just come in and save everything. And by the time he blew on the weapon that Steppenwolf was using and said not impressed, I was like, yes. Then he breaks it, and Aquaman starts kicking ass, and Wonder Woman, and they come together, which by the way was not used in this version of the film, and they come together and kick some ass, and it just felt right.
Wonder Woman gets to decapitate him, so she gets her shot in. Aquaman gets his stabbing in, so they're all like working together. Bruce is doing like crowd control type stuff, and it's certainly not perfect. There's problems with it, but there's a lot less problems with it than the other version.
But I will tell you that it's worth it. It's worth sitting through. It's worth watching. I like the way it was broken up into parts.
Yeah, I like that too.
I think like that had me thinking this could have been a short series. Like, and it would have been perfectly fine. Like 5-week thing, 6-week thing. Would have been perfectly fine.
See, I don't know if I'd go in that direction. I think that waiting would be a problem. Because then people go, well, nothing happened in this one. They didn't even fight anybody in this part of the movie or like that. But I like his style of having those title cards. And I remember really being surprised about that with Batman v Superman, where it says the world is introduced to the Superman. I was like, that's pretty cool.
And I think it helped tell the story better. And I'm sorry guys, I'm not the best at words at 2:45 in the morning, but I will say that this movie is one of the best DC movies I've seen since like the Nolan films. Like this was really good.
It comes off to me more like an art house type of thing. This is what an artiste does with something like the Justice League. Whereas Whedon was like going a little bit more for like the popcorny type of stuff, and they both have their merits. I kind of look at myself as being somebody who tries to do a mix between the two, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And I've never had a chance to do a Justice League film, and I probably never will. But you know, I've got my blueprints. But
you're gonna fucking if I have to fund it myself, so you're gonna do some films.
But like, there's a lot of stuff that Zack Snyder brought to the table that are brand new Zack Snyder stuff that I think are like, you know, you put your stamp on this and it's great. There's some stuff where I'm like, you put your stamp on this and I think somebody should kind of wipe that away. But like his idea of Aquaman being this Polynesian
god
dickhead,
like
it's so much better than Arthur Curry being this whole like, oh, you know, you got to save the dolphins and I'm going to be this blonde-haired white guy that's the same as everything else, and give me badass Aquaman instead.
And what an unlikely character to turn that into, because you already have a brooding son of a bitch in Bruce,
right?
And Aquaman feels like take those elements and kind of give him a little bit of a street rat slash fish, because he's Aquaman.
Street fish.
And it works, and it works very well. And everybody brought something unique to the table, and none of it was like, oh, this is awful. You know, like how I had said, again, I'm harping on a lot of the same points, but Bruce in the theatrical release just seemed like a douchebag that got nothing done. It was just like, oh yeah, well, I can get my ass kicked because I have money. And in this one, he's so in control and he's so in the character, and Aquaman not wanting to fight for Atlantis, but eventually just coming around to it because you can't run away from the world forever. Uh, Wonder Woman being the perfect paragon of virtue and unwavering, and of course, just being the strong woman character. It Everybody played their role, is what I'm saying, and it didn't feel like, hey, look, I've got some red Play-Doh and I've got some green Play-Doh and I've got some purple, and I rolled it all into a ball, and now it's just a mess. It felt like this all came together very nice, and in the same vein of like Bryan Singer's X-Men or the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, I don't feel ever like I need to watch Aquaman or Wonder Woman, to watch this film. This was just a fun dive into superheroes, and it was action packed, and it felt like the good old summer blockbuster. And I kind of want more of that. I kind of want more of just like, fuck it. MCU is great, but maybe you don't always need everything to have this definitive continuity.
I think that nothing can beat the MCU as far as how well they've been able to pull that off. But they've done that because they know what they're doing. And they put the time and the effort into it, and they put the organization into it. Whereas DC was just sort of like, we'll do a Blue Beetle movie. Yeah. We'll do a Nightwing movie. And it's like, well, you can't do a Nightwing movie if they kill off fucking Dick Grayson. And then it's like, well, we didn't talk to Zack about that. He shouldn't have been killing that off. Well, you should have talked to him. Like, it's the WWE problem. You can't say, we'll figure it out later and start doing a bunch of things. You have to figure it out in advance. And somebody like a Kevin Feige, that dude is brilliant. And he has proved himself at this point for over 10 years that he was like, I've got an idea of where we're going. We might have to take some different steps along the way just because some things get rearranged. Like Inhumans was supposed to be a movie, and then it became a TV show that was god awful. So I'm sure that some things didn't play out exactly the way that they thought, but they knew we're heading towards the Infinity Gauntlet story, and we're going to have everybody come together, and they're all going to be Thanos, and it's going to be this whole thing, and it's going to go back in time, and we're going to do this and whatever. Like, they had the basic ideas, whereas DC, they just sort of decided to go, let's do that, and can we skip forward a little bit? And there's problems. There's stuff that are like, I still think that, and I was disappointed with this, that Diana's introduction, that action sequence, wasn't like that much better. Because to me, my issue with that was, why is Diana's introduction about how quick she is? That's the Flash. Diana's not somebody who's supposed to be like, if you think Wonder Woman, you don't think quick. You think powerful, right?
I don't think it was supposed to be, oh, she's quick. It was, okay, she is single-handedly saving all of these lives. It happened to rely on her swiftness because these lunatics had guns and were going to blow these children to bits. But I thought it was less about her speed and more about, hey, look at how much she can do on her own. Look at who she can save on her own before, like, she's partnering up with all these people.
That's like a rewrite for me, where I'm like, can we not make it that she does this all in the span of 10 seconds and she blocks machine gun fire? And because then eventually when you get to Flash, it's not going to seem as cool because you're not going to see him as so much faster. It's just going to be like, well, Wonder Woman's fast too, and Superman's fast, and like that kind of thing. And it's like, I didn't like that. But then again, when they do some other things in this movie, and you're like, all right, the Amazonians get a longer fight scene, and they put up a better fight against Steppenwolf. So, badass,
I love that everybody put up a better fight because, again, it made it seem like the threat was bigger and it keeps our heroes intact because they, again, they're not going down so easy. It's not just like, and we've lost, and all hope is lost. They went down with a real fight.
Another thing that is so much better about this movie is we don't get Henry Cavill's fake chin. That weird mouth CGI.
Yeah.
Not a single shot of it like that because none of the reshoots.
Mustache.
Yeah. And like his character didn't even need a mustache. Have you seen that Mission Impossible film?
I have not.
It's good. Like these movies just keep getting better and better, but his character didn't need a mustache.
Maybe he wanted one.
So it's weird that's. I guess that was just kind of one of those things that marks the movie as like, this is flawed, man. Now we got like lawsuits and stuff going around it, but I'm a big fan of a lot of the changes. Well, you can't even call them changes of the original ideas. It's still not perfect, but it felt, after 4 hours of watching it, I felt like I wanted more. And I felt like, even though there's like some problems with some of those things, and for instance, one of those problems, I still think that it's a terrible casting decision to do Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. But when you end the movie partially with Lex Luthor telling Deathstroke that Bruce Wayne is Batman, I'm like, I want to see that Batman movie, damn it. Like,
Yeah. But the scene with them in Arkham, and I believe that was Zaz in the straitjacket.
I don't know for sure. I think it might have just been like a random dude.
Might have been just like a random bald guy. But like, the Arkham scene made me go, I'd watch an Arkham Origins film.
Yeah.
Like, where Deathstroke and Black Mask and all these people are trying to kill him.
You got Joker and you got Riddler and Two-Face and whatever in the mix in there, and Deathstroke's the more physical villain out of the bunch, and Luthor has like set up some of this kind of stuff. Like,
I enjoy the line of, I thought you were a few clowns short of a full circus.
Yeah.
And he was like, yep, I was. And then Arkham Asylum helped me see the error of my ways. Like, yeah, he was a few clowns short. Because fucking Joker. Like, great.
It's a shame that it's like, after it sets this kind of stuff up, you're like, all right, well, that's it. We're not going to get any more. And you're like, no, damn it. Like,
also, from a completely, you probably don't even look at anything like this, but Bruce's house, his modern layout there would look so fucking cool. I was like, that's where Bruce Wayne would live. Realistically, like, yeah, why wouldn't he live in an ultra modern home?
With the big lake there that they use for that, I thought that was pretty cool. I don't like the penthouse as much as him living in Wayne Manor, but at the same time, if he's living in the penthouse, like temporarily or something, that's a different story. But it's better than the penthouse in Dark Knight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this was a major step up. And if you watch Man of Steel, Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition, and then this movie, it's like, I wouldn't go so far as to say a masterpiece, but
it's definitely a unique take.
Yeah, it's a noteworthy way of doing these kind of things that deserves a lot of credit. Again, there's flaws. There's things that I really don't like about some of those three movies, but there's majority of it is just brilliant.
Honestly, I'm gonna give this movie like 4 stars. If we're rating on a 5-star scale, it's getting 4 stars for me. Like this.
Yep, it got 4 out of 5 for me on Letterboxd.
Like this was a lot of fun, addressed a lot of issues, and above all else, it's the perfect like, hey, like you and Caroline. Even though I'm sure Caroline's seen many movies with you. Hey, sweetie, I know you're not super into comic books. Watch this thing. Things are gonna go boom. It's gonna be fun. Like this should have been in theaters. This should have been in theaters.
The problem is nobody would want to sit through a 4-hour one. Like somebody like me, yeah. But other people are like, I know a ton of people that can't go an hour-long movie without going to the bathroom in the middle of it. And I'm like, really? I'd fucking hold it in. Get a popcorn container and piss in that if you need to. Like, yeah.
People sit through Lord of the Rings. No offense to Lord of the Rings fans. Like, look, Lord of the Rings is a great series. If you sat through the first one, which was 90% dialogue, you can make it through this easy.
I don't know if you can do the same with The Hobbit, though.
No.
Because then it's just biffle and niffle and stiffle and buffle and whiffle and whatever. And it's just like, oh my god, they're fucking dwarfs. I get it. Can you just die yet? Where's the ring? But this has art to it, and it's got a gravitas to it that I think is going to be appreciated more and more as time goes on.
Yeah. This is going to... I mean, we're living in it now, but like, in 20 years, it's going to be like, hey man, remember how good the fucking Snyder Cut was?
Right.
That was such a unique take on the Justice League. Wow, we should run that back.
And this is just another example of a couple different things that we've seen. Like the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 is way better than the cut that ended up being released. At a certain point, stop fucking with the directors. They might not have the best ideas, but they're making the movie and they know what they want to take out and they know what they want to keep in. Daredevil is not a fantastic movie, but the director's cut of Daredevil is a better movie than the theatrical cut. It's just flat out better. And the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman is so much better of a movie, and this is so much better of a movie. Stop messing around with them. I'm curious now, like really curious, if there's a good version of Suicide Squad.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was.
There's elements of that that's really good. It just happens to be at least half, if not more, sucks.
So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a good version of Suicide Squad. I think, was it the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn?
I don't think that there's a good version.
I think that movie. So, like, that's almost like 1984 Wonder Woman for me, where it's like, all right, you just wanted a cash grab with Harley Quinn. I get it. It's not a good film.
That's where I think the difference is between that director. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but they wanted to make their quirky film. And somebody like a Zack Snyder with this one, he wanted to make his dark and gritty film. And sometimes your interpretation of a character isn't going to be beloved by everybody. And I say that knowing full well that my favorite interpretations of characters aren't going to be everybody's favorites. Some people, their Batman is Adam West. And some people, they like Brave and the Bold. Whereas I like Bat God, where, you know, the characters from the Justice League side of things and Bruce knows like everything and he's a complete ass. But at the same time, you know, he's not a bad person. It's just that he's really dejected. And to me, Batman shouldn't just be this character that people can only find weight to it if they make him old and beaten down and about to retire. We've seen enough of that.
Dark Knight Rises.
Batman v Superman to a certain extent. Like, I don't think that you need to go in that direction just to make that have some value to it. But if you got a particular story you want to tell, then maybe you do for like a one shot or something. Something like the Harley Quinn film, they wanted to make Deadpool, and their interpretation
on an egg sandwich.
Yeah, their interpretation of that just didn't work. Whereas somebody else could have had the same exact movie in theory, and it might have worked. Because I think if you take a movie like, we want to do a Gotham City Sirens, Birds of Prey kind of crossover where Harley Quinn's the main character, you can do it. It could work. But when you've got Black Mask is not Black Mask other than the fact that he puts a black mask on, and you've got
Victor Zsasz.
Victor Zsasz is not Victor Zsasz, except for the fact that he's named Victor Zsasz, and the movie revolves around a fucking egg sandwich, then you're not making that movie. You're making a dumb, quirky Deadpool knockoff that happens to star the Harley Quinn character.
And let me just say, this is a different podcast for a different day, but outside of the animated series on DC Universe, which I guess will now be HBO Max, Harley Quinn as this quirky, e-girl, 2020 vibe, adventure girl chick, it doesn't work. It's a different podcast for a different day. I like, and Tony's laughing because he's heard me do this deal. But like, it doesn't work. I commend what they've done, because the Harley Quinn character will forever be a symbol of girl power, but it doesn't work in the same way that I love the Nolan films. I think The Dark Knight is one of the better Batman films ever. Dark Knight Returns. Was it Returns or Rises? Which one's
Rises?
The Nolan film? Dark Knight Rises absolutely doesn't work, because you just said, and we're gonna have Bane, and he's gonna talk like this.
Yeah, you took the character of Bane, and you said, let's go 60% perfect. And then that extra 40%, can we add a bunch of weird stuff? And it's like, no, you just ruined it, because Bane being the type of smart, calculating warlord type or whatever, you're selling me on this. That's really cool. And then when he goes, you're like, what the hell decision was this? You know? Again, it's like Lex Luthor in these movies. If you replace Jesse Eisenberg with somebody who's not this squirrely little, you know, kind of character, then Lex is great, because Lex is just a manipulative, smart jerk of a character.
If you shave Vince McMahon, you might be on something.
I still think that he should have been played by John Hamm.
Would have been a good fit.
Because he would have been another tall, good-looking, charismatic guy like Luthor should be, instead of this kind of weaselly,
squirrely little guy.
Eisenberg could have been a great Mad Hatter.
Might have even been a good Riddler.
Yeah,
you know,
he could have been a great Riddler, because Riddler can be that type of character.
He's a squirrely little guy.
I don't like when Riddler is laughing constantly, like they used to do in the Adam West thing, because it's like, well, now you're just
thing, and then again in Batman Forever, because Jim Carrey was paying tribute to the Adam West thing.
Yeah, Jim Carrey played the Riddler as the Joker, and Tommy Lee Jones played Two-Face as the Joker.
You know what though? It's a decent film.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger just went, it's cold, and like, you know, it's
cold.
The Ice Age. You know, but,
I'm making puns.
Yeah. Let's kick some ice. I want to do a fan track about that. We got to watch that at some point.
Puns out of the oven. Fresh puns.
That, like, the different interpretations of different characters can really be a hit or a miss. And in this movie, in this version of this, ignoring even like Batman v Superman and stuff, Bruce Wayne, for the most part, like 90% perfect. Wonder Woman, like 90% perfect. Superman, I'd go a little less, because I do think he should be more optimistic and more of a symbol of hope. So that's a negative for me, but I do still think that he's great. Aquaman, so much cooler. Flash, works really well. Cyborg, so much better in this version, night and day. And you got like Commissioner Gordon, J.K. Simmons is great. You know, Silas Stone was great. So it's just a better movie.
I couldn't agree more.
Those are all the notes that I've got. Anything else you want to bring up?
Nope. I would advise that everybody go see it.
I definitely think that people should check it out. Even if you didn't like Justice League, you know what? Even more so if you didn't like Justice League, watch this one. It's so similar, but the differences are enough that it might make you go, you know what? If you change a couple scenes, a movie can be a lot different.
So Callum had kind of said we weren't going to like it. What do you think he heard about this film that he assumed we were not going to like it?
I don't know. We're going to have to ask him. We'll have to discuss this on another podcast in some fashion.
Like a Darkcast or something.
TBD podcast. Yeah, because he was pretty set on the idea that we wouldn't like it. And both of us are coming out of this going, yeah, man, thumbs up.
So much better. I don't know, maybe he thought we were going to take it to, like, if they didn't get everything right, it was just going to be a failure. Like, because it was 4 hours long.
Could be that. Could be the length. Could be... So far, though, I haven't seen anybody dislike it on, like social media.
And here's the deal. We sit through Monday Night Raw. we I got a problem sitting down for 4 hours. I'm sure you don't. Like,
if I'm passionate about something, I have no issues with a lot of things. Like, we've been doing this James Bond franchise breakdown, a review to a kill. Even the ones that I'm not a big fan of, like For Your Eyes Only, that we're going to be recording in the next couple of days, and it'll be up in 4 weeks or so from when you're hearing this. If you're hearing this, 4 weeks before it comes out, at the very least. Even something like that movie, I've now, leading up to our review that we do, I've watched it 3.5 times just in this week, and I don't like that movie. So when it comes to something like this, where this is better, like, this is a 4-hour movie, I'm certainly going to watch it again.
Yeah, it's not a chore at all.
Mm-hmm. It might be the type of thing that I might, now that I've seen not only the original Justice League, if I would have watched this in the movie theater, I wouldn't have budged at all. Watching this at home, I was like, all right, I'm going to stop midway through and I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. Now that I've watched even this cut of the movie, I'm sure next time I watch it, I'll probably watch like chapter by chapter or have it on in the background or something, you know? Right. But I think that it's, if you want to do yourself the best case scenario, watch Man of Steel, watch the Ultimate Edition of BVS, and then watch this. I don't even think you need to see Wonder Woman, Aquaman, or Suicide Squad, for that matter. Actually, Aquaman came out after this, so it's really didn't even count. But
he's dead in the dystopian future.
British Mera wants the revenge because she's British in this one for some reason.
I bet it fit.
Yeah. It worked for me. I still would be okay if they would have recast her, but that's another story for another day. Again. So hopefully you enjoyed our little breakdown here. It was like an hour, 15 minutes. It wasn't 4 hours though. And if you have any other ideas of what you'd like to see us take care of in the future, you want us to do a breakdown of, maybe you are interested in our thoughts on something like a Suicide Squad or whatever. There are a couple different ways that you can make sure that we do that kind of thing. One thing is to leave a comment below and tell us, because, if a lot of people are like, hey, do this, I'll be like, all right, that's how it works. But in particular, there's the Pick Your Poison tier on the Patreon. If you want to directly sponsor something to make sure that we do it, that is where you get to pick, because you've sponsored that. You've been like, hey, I'm paying for this. I want you guys to do that. And then, if you want us to do like a fan tracks for one of these kind of things. I don't know if we can do a fan tracks for the Justice League 4-hour one, but we'll see. I'm not
Well,
I'm not ever opposed to the idea of some of those kind of things. Sometimes it might just be like, okay, we might have to work something out or whatever. But
now that you've seen it, you won't be totally quiet on the first go.
That's true. Yeah. So that's, there's options for different things like that. And if we do any kind of dark cast type of things, those are what we call the Patreon exclusive episodes on Smart Cat Moment. On Fanboys Anonymous, we call them bonus features. The idea is still the same. If you've been checking on the Smart Cat Moment stuff, then you should know by now. But we do these every once in a while. We do these Patreon exclusive things. So, we've done something recently Pokemon related, but Rob and I can talk about superheroes till the morning comes. So,
and I mean, for real, and
it's currently 3:15 in the morning, so that's proof right there.
It's just a good time.
I could ramble about Batman specifically for weeks without anybody even interrupting me.
And I've heard his blueprint. I want him to go to Hollywood. He needs to go to Hollywood. You need to go to Hollywood. And I hope you get there.
Someday I'm hoping somebody goes, I was listening to this podcast and he mentioned that he had a 100-story Batman blueprint. And then I read it and then I saw it and then whatever. And then I could be like, yeah, it happened. All right. And then everybody could go, it's the worst thing ever. I don't like the mango cut. How come this Batman does this? How come this Batman does that?
Oh. If they don't like the mango cut, what do you want us to do about their fruit problem?
There'll be a whole bit debate where, look, I'll say this. I think the DeMartha thing can be done. Yeah. and I'll say another thing. Somebody will be like, there's the Martha thing. That's the worst thing that ever happened to Batman. And then it'll be like, oh, the mango story. Why is Tim Drake called Flamebird? There's a tease. There's a tease.
Beautiful.
That's my version of the Joker scene at the end of this movie, where you'd be like, wait, why is he Flamebird? Why would he be Flamebird? Oh no, I want to hear this. Patreon maybe. Shout out to Max Landis, by the way, too. Max Landis is awesome. Anyway, Patreon, there's the Facebook, there's the Twitter. Follow that all over the place here. Stay tuned to everything else that we've got coming your way on fanboysanonymous.com, whether it's on the superhero spectrum or it's on the James Bond stuff or it's on video games or TV or the Oscars, which we're not going to be doing a normal Oscars breakdown because the movies, look at them. They don't even really exist this year. So whatever's happening's happening. We've got audio commentary tracks. I want to talk about Power Rangers. I want to talk about Ninja Turtles. I want to talk about a bunch of different things. And I want you guys to listen to us talking about that stuff.
I mean, the option is there, guys, to just let us cover all of Batman the Animated Series.
It's there.
If you pay enough, I'll quit my job. I mean,
I can't echo that even more. Yeah, totally. So follow what I've got going on there. Follow what I've got going on the Smart Cat Moment stuff for the pro wrestling side of things. Go to smartcatmoment.com. You'll find all the information there, the YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. There's TeePublic stuff, Redbubble, and the merchandise. And follow what Rob's got going on. He's at DeFelice on Twitter in particular.
Yeah, I'm at DeFelice on Twitter. I should have some irons in the fire regarding Twitch. I should always be working on pro wrestling over at Fightful.com and WrestleZone.com until you pay me enough to sit here and watch that maybe animated series with Tony, and then I will legitimately just leave my job. So remember, that's an option. I am a slave. If you want to give me the right money, I'll do whatever it is. There you go. That's my pitch. It's 3 a.m.
If you're hearing us, Bruce, you're rich.
Bruce by the bank.
Yeah.
Come on.
Bought the bank. All right, everybody.
That's a great line.
It is a great line.
How'd you get the house back? From the bank. I bought the bank. It's of course you did.
That's Bruce.
God, I love Bruce.
That's our Bruce. It's like a TV show or something. Da 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 da. All right, everybody. That's it for this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your continued support, and thank you for joining us the next time around. But for now, it's time for us to geek out.